Well, I tried to do a bit and it didn't work out. Welcome to WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. It's your old pal Jake. And we are off to an auspicious start on this, the first ever, let's hope the first of many, Friday Peace Talks. Here's the deal, gang. I fully believe that one of the main sources of conflict we have right now in the United States of America, in fact, around the world, is the fact that we don't see the same things happening. We don't agree on reality. Well, gosh, no wonder we are unable to come to agreement on anything, because we don't start from a place where we are accepting the same reality. The answer to that will be solved by your old pal, will be provided by your old pal Jake right here and now. Friday Peace Talks. Here's my suggestion. We do viewer suggestion clips. We invite people of all stripes to come in, and we follow a few simple rules of courtesy to ensure that it doesn't just turn into a mudslinging contest. Here's the rules. As with everything on WYCD, this is democratic. If you have a suggestion, I'd like to hear it. But first and foremost, for Friday Peace Talks, we're going to get started with these rules. Welcome all newcomers. If somebody is arriving at the channel, arriving at the stream for the first time today, say hi. Just a polite greeting. No insults, even if you truly suspect that you would hate the person on the other side of the screen. No insults. We're not going to do that. Hear out conflicting views. That means if you are a MAGA person and you believe that all these darn liberals just want to what is it? Juice babies for adrenochrome. Hear out what they're saying first and foremost. And it goes the other way as well. If you fully believe that everybody in MAGA currently has a Klan hood in their closet somewhere, don't assume that. Hear out the point they are making. This is where, I believe, we will get progress made. I don't expect that any of us will be swayed in one night. I don't think so. But I do think, through this experiment, we will be able to at least demonstrate for ourselves that it's possible to have a civil conversation about this stuff. That's it. That also means if somebody suggests, for example, Joe Rogan or Tucker Carlson, we will watch it. That's simple. We want to see the conflicting views. One more thing. Heckle your old pal Jake when he breaks the rules. I promise you, I will forget the rules and I will break them. Even if I'm just breaking someone's balls with an insult. Let's moderate each other. I'll moderate the comments. You guys moderate your old pal Jake. And together, we're going to make a welcoming and productive atmosphere. Having said that, I mean, it's dealer's choice to start off the stream. And, folks, you know what we got to talk about today. Come on, it's probably the biggest news in the world. It looks like Trump's getting indicted. Now, if you are MAGA folks that are joining, I'm not going to do my normal spiel. My normal spiel is highly critical of right-wing politics. I'm still going to give my opinion, but I would like it noted if you're listening now, and I'll remind viewers later of this as well. If you think I'm saying something that is not true, you can tell me, and you will not get attacked for it. And wicked audience, people in the Senate, I'm holding you to that as well. Don't attack people simply for disagreeing. However, you can debate. I welcome debate in the comments. I'll hop in from time to time even. But the idea here is to be productive. So if you find, if you're MAGA, for example, and you find that you disagree with your old pal Jake, well, tell me, and we'll walk through it. And I tell you that because you're probably going to disagree with this. So all signs point to an indictment next week for Donald J. Trump. It looks like District Attorney Alvin Bragg is indeed proceeding. We know this because there were steps taken today. I do apologize also. I am coming down with a cold. There's a 90% chance I'm going to sneeze directly into the microphone today. But our old pal Alvin Bragg appears to have begun the process of the indictment, which includes getting security ready. Because obviously, this is the biggest indictment that has ever existed in the United States of America. While I go blow my nose, I'm going to play a little bit from NBC New York. They did excellent coverage of it, right to the point. Here it is. Hell of a start. Here it is.
But first this afternoon, New York City stepping up security ahead of a possible indictment of former President Trump. What could happen as soon as next week? That's where we're starting this afternoon. Thanks for joining us. I'm Natalie Pasquarello.
And I'm David Usry. At 4 o'clock, law enforcement sources telling News 4 potential security plans are being discussed for areas in and around Manhattan Criminal Court. Let's get to our chief investigative reporter, Jonathan Deese. He was the first to break this story. He's in the newsroom to tell us what he's learned. Jonathan?
David, Natalie, local, state, and federal agencies now having meetings and making plans on how to secure the courthouse and beyond if the Manhattan DA moves forward with criminal charges against former President Trump next week. The possible indictment of former President Trump has the NYPD, state court officers, Secret Service agents, the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force, and the Manhattan DA's office all making security arrangements. 5 senior officials tell us the security planning is precautionary, as to date, no charges have been filed. Former New York State Homeland Security Director Michael Balboni.
There could be a very public, controversial event at a public facility. You'll see a massive presence with all sorts of limiting access, certainly cars and trucks in and around the area.
Sources tell us inside the courthouse, court officers making plans to provide internal security for all parties, Team Trump, prosecutors, the judge, other court personnel. Perimeter security to be handled by the NYPD. The Secret Service already providing around-the-clock security for the former president, as the JTTF and other intelligence officials are looking into potential threats, large gatherings here in New York or beyond. Balboni says top officials already scouring social media to pick up any potential threats. And among possible concerns officials are looking for,
a massive, violent disruption that was pre-planned, coordinated, and much further outside of just the courthouse.
Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg is deciding whether to move forward with criminal charges against Trump in connection with Trump's alleged hush money payment to Stormy Daniels. Trump denies wrongdoing, and he took to social media.
All right. First, I got to get the pettiness out of the way. because I did it against Santos. That means I gotta hold the standards. Get a clip-on tie. You can't tie a tie. Just get a clip-on. Super easy. Okay, that's obviously concerning. That's super concerning. Come on. Can you imagine any other former president requiring anything more than a phone call to turn himself in? Guys, this is shameful. We are all brought down by the state of this. If you are a right-winger watching this, there is going to be a lot of left-wingers celebrating, no doubt. But there is not the same as being happy about it, you know? As much as I don't like that guy, and I don't like that guy, as much as I don't, I wish that he simply wouldn't have done the things that I suspect he did that are currently resulting in charges. Or it appears that they are about to result in criminal charges. But I don't want criminality to be ignored just because I didn't want it to happen in the first place. Do you understand? It bums me out that a president of the United States appears to have done all of the things that he has done. Right now, we're just talking about legally. It bums me out that a former president appears to have absolutely shattered the law. And it really bums me out that there is a national security concern right now because he keeps hinting at the storm and doing QAnon posts on Truth Social and dog whistling for his crowd. If we have MAGA folks in the comments, I'd like your take on this. Do you think everybody else is overreacting to the way this guy has behaved? And if so, my question to you would be, in your opinion, does this guy intentionally try to rile up crowds, or does he not? That's my question. Let me know. We're going to finish this clip out.
Again today to blast the investigation.
Is just a continuation of the most disgusting witch hunt in the history of our country.
In the past week, former Trump attorney Michael Cohen testified before the grand jury, and Team Trump has said the former president has turned down an offer to testify himself. All signs the investigation is coming to a head.
It's all speculation at this point. But if that
Well, hello. And Catherine, maybe you can help me out. I've been having a hell of a time. How much of the stream have you guys seen? Have we been live for about 16, 17, about 20 seconds? I hope so. If you missed it, which is very probable given the evening I've had, if you missed it, we're doing a new kind of stream today. It's called Friday Peace Talks. Not much of a transition, but it's an interesting concept. We are inviting everyone today to come on in. Drop a link in the comments if you've got a piece of news you think we should all look at together, and we'll discuss it. Here's my thought. I am of the belief that the major problem we have right now in America and around the world is that we are not living in a shared reality. We don't agree on literally what is real. So we're not going to be able to come up with solutions to the problems we have until we first agree on the actual problems that we have. And we're not going to get there unless we, at the very least, can agree that we are in the same planet together. So, my assumption is that I have all the correct news and everybody else is wrong. And I assume everybody else is assuming the same thing. The only way to find out who's right is if we watch each other's news. That's it. So if you disagree with me, you're not going to get yelled at. You will be debated with in a friendly manner. I encourage everybody, including regulars for the WYCD Wicked audience and newcomers. Drop a clip in the comments. You can let your favorite news anchor retort to your old pal Jake. If you like Tucker Carlson, I have questions, but drop the link and we'll look at it. We'll fact check, but we will absolutely look at it together. I think this could, over time, have the reasonable amongst us come to some sort of a baseline agreement. But in the meantime, at the very least, it'll be useful for both of us, whether you're MAGA, progressive, a corporate Democrat, a grand old party Republican. It'll be useful for all of us to see what the other folks are thinking and what kind of news they're getting. That's the general idea. If, because this is a relatively new channel, if we're not able to attract enough of a MAGA audience to genuinely have a spirited debate, that's fine. We'll just watch some clips together. It'll be a regular Friday extra large stream. I do, however, very much want to show you the rules for Friday Peace Talks, because I think that's going to make it. He said, really wishing, there it is. Here's the rules. Please welcome all newcomers. There's somebody that arrives in the stream, say hello. We want to be a friendly place. No insults, of course. We do all kinds of insults the other 6 days of the week. We get real petty sometimes. Not on Friday Peace Talks. Hear out conflicting views. That means if you're MAGA, don't assume the tree-hugging hippies are just trying to be performatively woke. Assume there's actually something they care about. And hear out what their argument is. You don't have to necessarily agree with it. You just have to hear them out. Similarly, if somebody with, I don't know, Trump 2024 in their handle shows up in the stream, let's the lefties, don't be mean. You're not generally. I've seen all of our other streams. Never had this sort of problem before, but I've also never directly invited everyone before. So just for the record, the rules apply equally. Hear out the conflicting views. Assume that MAGA person doesn't have a Klan hood in their closet and hear out what they've got to say. That doesn't mean anybody's going to be immune from fact-checking. In fact, we are very much going to fact-check, and I think that's going to help us come to agreement. But the good news is, all of it will be done right before your eyes as I Google things. The final one, and this is an important one, just like I'm going to moderate the comments as much as I can, heckle your old pal Jake when he breaks the rules. I may insult someone, particularly if they're in the news clips. I may not certainly catch everybody who's new, and I may fail to hear out a conflicting view. I might just talk over him. If that happens, heckle your old pal Jake about it. Don't let me get away with it. The tea we are drinking today, by the way, is a lovely latte. Ever since that guy did a little heckling of latte liberals, I can't get it out of my head. Now I need to have latte all the time. Probably not good for you. All right. I told everyone in the Patrick Kibido, love it. I told everyone in the National Zero chat forum last night to check out WYCD. They are mostly good liberal folks, and hopefully some of them will. Yeah, thank you, man. I feel like we did have a pretty boisterous, what do you call it? Robust. That's the word I'm looking for. We had a pretty robust number of views today. I certainly appreciate that. Now, just to give the old heads, the true blue, we don't have like a name yet, but to give the normal Wicked watchers a shit, that sounds cool. Cooler than I can pull off. Just to give the normal audience a heads up, I'm not expecting that we're going to get a lot of visitors today, but I'm going to put this out on Fridays. We're going to keep having fun, keep doing the XL streams, and hopefully, we are going to attract some folks that may be in need of a little perspective, and maybe we'll gain some perspective as well. One can only hope. So, despite the intended nature of the stream, look, there's no way we can avoid talking about this. I wouldn't want to anyway. This is actually perfect. Because looks like Donald Trump's going to be indicted. Happy St. Patty's Day. Let's jump to the Midas Touch, talking about it. They've got a new gal on that network. We're going to look at what she has to say. If MAGA happens to join halfway through, and you disagree with something she says, let me know. It's all good. Let your old pal Jake know. We'll address your concerns, and we'll fact check anything you want following the piece. I'm really trying to stall. There we go. All right, here's Midas Touch. I don't recall the new gal's name, but she's going to be everywhere because she's great. Talking about the apparently looming Trump indictments. The first time ever that a president of the United States will be indicted.
Breaking news from Fox and NBC today that the Manhattan DA's office is making arrangements with law enforcement to have Trump surrender and face an indictment to the Manhattan DA's office.
Fox News Alert now, and we are learning that the Manhattan DA's office has asked for a meeting with law enforcement ahead of a potential Trump indictment. This is coming to Fox News from a source in the courts. The meeting, which was requested yesterday and has not been set yet, is to discuss logistics for sometime next week.
Okay, to correct myself from earlier, the presenter is Karen Friedman Angifilo. All right, let's try that again with a little less sass. Karen Friedman Angifilo. And, man, she's been doing a hell of a job. I've been watching her with Popok and Ben Meiselas, and just been fascinating to listen to. If I recall correctly, she worked for this very office before, so you can't get more of an expert unless, of course, you have Michael Cohen, who's actually involved in the case. Shit, they did a really good job with hiring. I got to see if they're willing to work for, what do I have? $15.
Which would mean that they are anticipating an indictment next week.
Yes, folks, it's finally happening. My name is Karen Friedman Agnifilo. I'm a co-host on the Midas Media Network's.
I could have just said nothing. She would have covered it. I do want to say, MAGA folks, if you join us during this, look, you're going to probably hate everything you hear. Let us know in the politest terms you can what it is you disagree with, and we will see if we can fact check it for you.
Legal AF. Every Wednesday and Saturday, we break down legal news for you. And so I'm going to explain to you, because I was the chief assistant DA, the number 2 prosecutor at the Manhattan DA's office. And I worked there for 30 years, and I was chief assistant for a decade. So let me tell you what's going on and what this means. The fact that law enforcement are all coordinating and preparing for Donald Trump to face charges here. So what we've been saying all along, last week when we were notified that Donald Trump was given notice to testify in front of the grand jury, we said that means they're about 2 weeks away from seeking an indictment, and we expected to see something either this week or next week. And so we were right on the money, because guess what, folks? It's happening, and it's happening next week. The grand jury has been hearing evidence about potential crimes committed by Donald Trump.
Credit where it's due. She was 100% correct. I mean, that was a bullseye estimate, my word.
With respect to Stormy Daniels and the hush money payments, and that's all been widely reported. And so what's happened, though, is a grand jury has had witnesses testify. And so the only thing that's left now is to ask the grand jury to vote and to vote on the charges. And if they do, and that will mean that he is indicted for a state court felony crime. And although we don't know exactly what the crimes are, we believe it's most likely falsifying a business record in the first degree, and I suspect there'll be multiple counts. Now, this is a grand jury that doesn't sit every single day. We believe they meet Monday, Wednesday, and Thursdays for half a day. And there was no activity coming out of there yesterday. So, meaning no reporters reported on seeing any witnesses. So they could have voted yesterday for all we know, but we do not know. If they hadn't voted yesterday, then I believe they will vote on Monday. And what happens next? Well, what's happening right now, and what's been widely reported, is that law enforcement is coordinating Trump's surrender. And that takes big coordination. And it's something that law enforcement do in New York regularly. It's something that I've been involved in many times, whether it's the United Nations General Assembly, whether it's the Pope visiting, or whether it's the prosecution of a terrorist. It doesn't matter. Anything that could bring lots of people together, lots of interest, and potentially people with nefarious purposes, like people who want to bring harm on Donald Trump, et cetera. They coordinate and they bring together all different law enforcement agencies. So you would expect the Manhattan DA's office to coordinate with the New York City Police Department, the NYPD. They would also coordinate with the New York State court officers, because the court officers are the ones who will have to coordinate bringing him into the courtroom to see the judge, right? And
genuine question here. Do you believe that any other president in history would have been handled any other way than a phone call saying you've got to come turn yourself in, or B, required more than that to turn themselves in? I think the answer to both is no. I think you honestly, in my opinion, you honestly cannot trust Trump to do the honorable thing and show the dignified thing, frankly, and show up to a court appointment of this magnitude without being forced. At least you couldn't guarantee it. I personally would not want the Justice Department to just trust that a phone call would be enough. I would expect him to literally attempt another coup before facing a felony charge for something. But it's entirely possible that I've just become bitter. So temper me a little bit if you think that's probably not the case. Because on the other hand, he might also just be thinking, I'm going to beat this. Certainly, I don't believe that ethics or morals. If I'm being honest with you, I don't think that has anything to do with his thought process. I don't think he is considering what would be best for the country. But if you disagree, let me know.
So who's going to be in there, and how are they going to protect the president, the former president, I should say, when he's in court? Of course, the Secret Service will be involved. And my understanding is they are running point. They're going to lead the law enforcement effort here because they're the ones in charge, right? They're the ones who take care of the former president. And that's what he'll get for life. I also think that the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force and with the Manhattan DA's office would all get together just to not only to coordinate, but to make sure that security is at its tightest and so that nothing can happen there. So
is she immune to the awkward pause? She might be. That's a creepy superpower. There is something very fitting, I feel, about a bunch of Secret Service guys who are presumably of the same variety that accidentally deleted their texts after January 6th, being assigned for the remainder of their career to go to jail to protect the former president who has become a jailbird. Something poetic about that. Ooh, I am being sassy, aren't I? All right, I'll be nicer.
We'll see that they're getting together. They're going to coordinate and talk about what day, what time, where should Donald Trump meet everyone? Where should he go? You know, he typically a defendant would have to go to 1 Hogan Place, which is the address of the Manhattan DA's office. It's attached. It's the side entrance to the 100 Center Street building, which is where the courts are. And we'll find out which court he's going to. We don't even know yet who the judge is going to be and which courtroom it's going to be, but it'll be in 100 Center Street, which is the main criminal court. It's the criminal courts of Manhattan. But so he comes in the side entrance because of the DA's office, which is attached to 100 Center Street, and that address is 1 Hogan Place. And he'll come in and he'll take an elevator and he'll go up to one of the higher floors, likely 7 or 8. And that's where he'll go into the investigation bureau, and he will be fingerprinted and processed, which means they will write an arrest report like every other defendant. They will take his mugshot like every other defendant. I doubt he'll be handcuffed. I don't know why I doubt that, but I just don't think that would happen. Secret Service will not leave his side the entire time. He is in their custody.
Okay, couple of things. First of all, hey, Laura, good to see you. And hi, Patrick. Well, hello, Catherine. Delighted to have you all here. Jesus didn't charge. Good to see you as well. Interesting. KFA was a prosecutor, Jake. She has her cadence down tight. Yeah, she does. She certainly does. I saw a comment from you earlier, Patrick. I wouldn't give a rip if Trump turned up in Moscow or Pyongyang. Yeah, that would. I honestly caught myself having that thought earlier. Like, wouldn't it just take all the pressure off? It'd be so nice. I don't think we'll get that lucky, unfortunately. He's such a coward, maybe packing to pay his good friend Putin a visit. Yeah, I wish. Although, honest to God, there was a point in a couple years back where I thought, like, is this dude just packing up to go? But I did want to say, in regards to the handcuffing, and it's going to put a bitter taste in my mouth because I really do believe that you should have 100% equal treatment under the law, no matter what your job was. But I would not I would not be okay with police handcuffing a 78-year-old man or 77-year-old man, whatever he is, that did a nonviolent crime. Just because I don't like this one doesn't change the principle. The principle is supposed to be I would expect equal treatment. So, I actually won't be that bummed out if they don't handcuff the guy and we don't get that cathartic shot of him, hiding his wrists under a jacket or whatever. That said, number one, I have never arrested anyone. I have no idea how that works in terms of discretion. And two, I'm not going to complain if they handcuff him because I would frankly rather they err on the side of treating him like anybody else. Err on the side of harshness, because what I am concerned about is that they're not going to handcuff him and they're not actually going to put him in the back of a car. They're going to let him drive in a limousine or some nonsense and then take a first-class flight or yada, yada, yada. I'm concerned that when the gavel falls, if they find him guilty, they're going to say, and so we sentence you to prison, but prison will take the form of hanging out at Mar-a-Lago because we don't want to put you in your own facility. I hope that's not the case, but I think it's going to be.
So that's what's happening right now. We've said for the last week that Donald Trump was on the 1 yard line, and I think that's where this is further indication that
they're on Trump's 1 yard line. Surely.
That is where we are, and that's what's happening in this matter because of the fact that no more witnesses have gone in. We know that Michael Cohen is done testifying, and he's the main witness. And the other thing that happened that tells me that we are on the 1 yard line is that Donald Trump released one of his press releases last night, really attacking the Manhattan DA's office, attacking this prosecution, and really going on the offensive against this whole case and this whole matter. And he's also put his lawyers out all over the television to try and attack the investigation and the prosecution. And so that led me to believe that there's been communications to his attorneys about potentially surrendering. First, it was whether he wanted to testify, because he does have a right to testify in the grand jury. But we know he would have had to have waived immunity if he was going to testify, but he declined, which is normal. Most defendants do decline because otherwise, since he would have waived immunity, anything he said would have been used against him, and he would never risk that. So that's what's going on there. And that's how we knew that something was brewing, because he released that press release last night. I even said maybe he's been indicted, and someone told them something, because that's clearly someone poked him. And so he released that. It's looking today, based on the reporting, that what's poked him is this indication of coordination of law enforcement, including his Secret Service detail, who obviously they would have told him that that's what's happening. And they're picking a good day for him to show up next week. Of course, he hasn't, we have to wait for the grand jury to actually indict before he can be.
True. I've got the cart about 1.5 miles ahead of the horses. I'm already popping the bubbly.
Required.
First time I had to do that. I'm going to pause, break for a second, read a couple comments, because, man, they're pouring in. I love it. Most people arrested don't have a Secret Service detail who are not allowed to leave his side. He won't be handcuffed, just processed quickly. Yeah, he will not be allowed to be humiliated. Yeah, you're probably right. Laura earlier said, by the way, it would be karmic. Does she want someone to shoot him? That's way too much information. Interesting point. I hadn't even considered that. I don't think, though, and this might, you know what? I'm realizing this is based off stereotypes. This might be an issue, but I don't think the folks on the left are very likely to resolve a political conflict with shooting. But, as I say that out loud, I realize there's hundreds of millions of people on the left. Of course, one of them's going to be crazy enough. You're right. That's a poor security move on her part. Aunt Button says, okay, pal, you're not enthusiastic about handcuffing a 70-year-old, but can you get on board with tarring and feathering him into court? Yeah, absolutely. I have about 30 to 45 seconds of maturity in me each day. I've spent those all now. I am 100% on board with that. Hey, Jared Cardenas, good to see you. I just want to let any newcomers... Oh, this program is exceptional. Thank you so much, Jared. I just want to let any newcomers know disagreement is welcome. I absolutely love to be corrected, and if you have an idea for a clip that you'd like us to watch together, just drop the URL in the comments. We'll have a gander. John McDonough says just prosecute the SOB. Yeah, looks like that's coming up next week. And by the way, it is because of that attitude that it's coming up. This impatience was very healthy for America. It wasn't impatience, for the record. We waited. Those of us who are firmly of the belief that what the January 6th committee found out is in fact reality and is true, and there should be punishment for those crimes. We have been beyond patient, and it wasn't until people started stamping their feet that we actually saw progress happening. So stay mad. Jesus Didn't Charge says, come on, kind folks. Am I cruel to at least want to see him in an orange jumpsuit without his hairspray and makeup? I can't wait. Oh, it's going to be like Gene Hackman, Lex Luthor, but plus 20 years. All right, let's finish this clip up.
Before his presence can be required. But it sounds to me that the Manhattan DA's office is fairly confident in their case and that they can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt and that they can get the grand jury to vote on it. And if they weren't confident and they didn't think they could do it, they wouldn't even be making these arrangements ahead of time. So if he is indicted, we will not know about it unless Donald Trump leaks it, because since he's being indicted prior to being arrested, that indictment stays sealed until he goes before the court. So even if Donald Trump starts talking about it, Alvin Bragg will not be permitted to respond because the indictment is sealed. So until he goes to court, we will not know anything about it, and we will not be able to get any confirmation, which he'll obviously be able to then spin it and get his story out the way he always does. And it'll be frustrating because we will want to hear the other side. But it is what it is because it'll be sealed. And so it'll be sealed until he goes before the judge and is arraigned and told of the charges. Many people have been asking, what if he refuses to come to New York? Can he be required? Well, this is an unprecedented situation. So I can only tell you what would normally happen. I can't tell you what will happen in this case. What would normally happen if someone's been indicted and they reside or are present in another jurisdiction? What would happen is law enforcement in New York would coordinate with Florida, and they would do that by seeking a governor's warrant, and it would be governor to governor. So it would be New York's governor, Kathy Hochul, would contact Ron DeSantis through paperwork, obviously. And by the way, they do this all the time with other defendants.
Yeah. That really inspires a lot of confidence. Yeah, Kathy Hochul will just call up Ron DeSantis and say, hey, Ron DeSantis, here's the thing. We require reasonable, mature behavior. Do you think you could provide that? Good Lord. Deeply concerning. This, don't get me wrong, on this St. Patty's Day, I couldn't be happier. This was the exact thing I've literally been ranting about for days on end. But I'm just a little bit concerned that a bunch of Q folks are going to say, ooh, storm's here. And we're going to have our local militias, a.k.a. Al-Qaeda, as I've heard them described, that's an insult. We're going to have militias rolling out and being what they view as, I'm trying to be nice. I can't be. If anyone's offended, I apologize. I worry that we're going to have people raising hell because Trump's going to ask him to raise hell. That's what I'm concerned about. I sincerely hope that's not the case. I sincerely hope that Trump is smarter than I've given him credit for and doesn't try that nonsense, thus adding on to his legal woes. Man, it's of genuine concern. I also want to say I never once even considered that if Trump got indicted, he would keep it to himself. Never once.
Who get arrested in other jurisdictions. And all it is a ministerial administrative paperwork thing. I mean, the U.S. Constitution provides for this interstate cooperation when it comes to people who have committed crimes. And so it's really a ministerial act. And normally what would happen is they would just make arrangements for the defendant to be transported to New York. And if the defendant waives extradition, meaning they agree to go, they go quickly and they go be taken before a judge in New York. They could also not waive extradition and fight the extradition. And normally what happens is a judge would then incarcerate the defendant while they litigate the extradition. Of course, that's never going to happen here. So we'll see if Ron DeSantis actually doesn't cooperate with New York. If he doesn't, law enforcement in New York still has other tools that they can employ. They can work with local Florida law enforcement to bring Donald Trump before a judge who will then order him to go to New York. I mean, there are ways to do this, but I doubt any of that would happen. I think they would just try to persuade him to come and surrender on his own. You know, obviously, if he doesn't come and he's fighting it, if he went to any other state, the same process could occur. Law enforcement in New York could work with law enforcement in any other state to do the same, procedure, which is.
You guys, I don't know who was watching Majority Report recently, but they just brought up out of the blue Jade Helm. You guys remember that conspiracy theory? In the Obama era, it was a military training exercise that was going to take place, I think, in Texas. And there were governors, I think Perry, Republican governors who were mobilizing the National Guard in a show of force within our own country between military factions. I'm genuinely concerned. I am genuinely concerned. I do not for a moment, however, think that should factor in to whether or not we arrest this guy. In fact, the very fact that I'm concerned tells me that we got to arrest this guy, because we have tried the method of ignoring right-wing crime since the 1860s. As soon as the Civil War wrapped up, we had about 30 seconds of pretending like we were going to hold anybody responsible for that. And we never recovered culturally as a country because we couldn't agree on reality. It's coming to a head. We are now going to find out if we are truly in a United States, if we are truly in a country that believes in law and order. We may not be. I think we are, but I'm nervous that enough of us don't agree with that we might have some problems over the weekend. But that's not helpful. So just keep your head on a swivel, I guess.
Arrest him on an arrest warrant, bring him before a judge, etc. But because he is who he is, I don't think any of those things will happen. But I also don't know that he would agree to come voluntarily either. So this is unprecedented. It's anyone's guess as to how this will actually play out. But these are all the possibilities. And I'm not surprised to hear, especially from Fox News, which, of course, you know where they're hearing it from, that Donald Trump that law enforcement is getting together and coordinating his surrender. So if he wasn't going to cooperate, I'm sure he would have told someone that already or said that already, and we would probably know. So I think it's more likely that Secret Service will take the lead and say, this is how we can keep him secure. This is how we'll get him here. And that it'll be coordinated with Secret Service that way. And he'll come to New York, I expect, sometime next week. And
Yeah, that's a fair point. If all my chicken littling, what am I talking about? If he was planning, I haven't seen him do anything that he hasn't telegraphed. And Karen over there redeeming the name, thank God. I didn't like that we were using it as an insult for a while. Karen over there, quite correctly pointing out, the guy probably would have telegraphed significantly. When something's on his mind, you know what it is because it's on Truth Social. And the pattern I've seen from him over the course of just today was, yes, early morning ranting against the law, followed by mid-morning and early afternoon ranting against Ron DeSantis, and basically just upping his campaign as much as he can. So that's more likely the response we're going to see. Just a tripling down on the narrative that he is a candidate for office, and that should grant him immunity. Am I speaking into the live mic? Yes, good. Aunt Button says, also the Black Power symbol and LGBTQ rainbows. I missed something key. Laura says, either side could shoot him. Oh, good point. It's been impossible to control or get him to go away. Yeah, oof. That is what happened to Shinzo Abe. Yes. He was a right-winger, and it was somebody who didn't believe he was sufficiently right-wing enough that shot him, assassinated him. I got to watch what words I use on the channel, but yeah, that is what happened. It's a fair concern to have, Laura. John McDonough says, it's almost Spielberg couldn't write a script like this. Ask DeSantis if it's okay to arrest Trump. Right? Oh my gosh. Yeah, we're gonna get to John's other comment in a moment. But that is such a you're right, like Spielberg or even Shakespearean like play, because they are political rivals, but DeSantis' whole career is sucking up to Trump. Oh, it's the ultimate dilemma. And frankly, nothing would make DeSantis happier than if Trump just went away, literally got put in a cell somewhere. Oh, my word. I'm going to look more into that later when I can hyper focus on it. Happy St. Kibido Day. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, it is now St. Kibido Day. That's all there is to it. Jesus didn't charge, says DeSantis in the middle of Rump's extradition. We're not insulting today. We're insulting a little today. That's fine. Yeah, I'm going to be stricter later. Oh, the irony. Never has a soap opera plot been thicker with. If Trey Crowder isn't offended by Al-Qaeda, then neither am I. Okay, cool. Irony, the ultimate irony. Ooh, JFJ Live. DeSantis cannot prevent Trump's extradition. Let's see Trump resist arrest or flee scene. Want to see it. Oh, my God. Few things would make me happier than that particular episode of Cops. Ooh. So that's the basics, folks. That is what we are going to be watching all weekend. On Salty Saturday, I'm going to have a lot more to say. In the meantime, and may this spur some conversation with folks that disagree, particularly if you're watching later. You are immune from Salty Saturday heckling in the comments of this VOD. If you disagree with this next piece. So recently, an anti-woke conservative was asked a devastatingly difficult to answer question. And that was, what is woke? If you are wondering why lefties get so up in arms against the anti-CRT or anti-woke laws, it is because we have a pretty good idea of what material that will actually remove from textbooks, because we follow it closely, because we're concerned about it. It is also things like this, where a person dedicates all of their time and makes a career out of attacking something that they do not understand to begin with. They claim expertise and then cannot provide a simple definition of what it is they claim to be experts on. Here's the Majority Report talking about it.
Bethany Mandel, who is Seth Mandel's wife. And I only, generally I don't refer to someone as someone's wife or husband as their first description, but she has often, they work as a team.
Yeah, he's also her husband. You refer to them together because it's very much a folie à deux sort of, these are insane people.
Without a doubt. And it's also, they very often rely on their status as husband and wife and mother, father.
Parents.
Because they are... They're fundamentalists.
Yeah, they're otherwise revolting.
And he writes for, who does he write for?
He's now the executive editor at the Washington Examiner.
Washington Examiner, and I think he was like a tablet mag type of guy. And
yeah, he used to write at the Post and commentary.
And where is she? Does she?
She contributes to Deseret News.
Okay, and she's written a book called Stolen Youth. One can only imagine what that's about. What is that about?
I mean, I assume it's basically Shadi Hamid was on this beat too recently about how oh, look at all these data that shows that if you're, and I don't know if this is even true, this is his conception of the data. Carl Bayer maybe read this study and said that he was simplifying it a little too much, but the idea that young liberals are depressed and young conservatives aren't, and that's, a problem somehow. And I would just say if that's true, it's probably because there's some selection going on between oh yeah, the people who are comfortable and callous towards the suffering of others are generally happier than people who aren't those things.
And I don't even think that that's necessarily true.
Yeah, I don't think it was true.
We played that clip of Candace Owens saying, well, if you have some bad feelings, let it burn in your chest. There's a lot of conservative repression about their own feelings that they might not identify as unhappiness.
The kids are not all right. The left is waging an all-out battle on the American family, particularly the youngest members. If they can make our children miserable, lead them to question every building block of society, and rebuild their entire concept of reality, then the left and their woke indoctrinators will consider that a victory. But we can't let them win.
Pause it. This right here is a big part of the reason why I want to do Friday Peace Talks. Even if you take for granted that the person that wrote that title that he just read, which sounds like an auctioneer going through your crazy uncle's ranting, even if you assume that person doesn't believe a word of it, they have an audience. They make a living doing this. So somebody reading that believes it. We got to address that. To further highlight that, let's watch her ranting just a little bit and failing to be able to identify what woke is.
Well, what does that mean? And she has a little bit of a problem with that.
Of Americans consider themselves very liberal, and probably fewer of them consider themselves to be woke. And so, you know, when we talk about traditional,
what does that mean to you? Would you mind defining woke? Because it's come up a couple times, and I just want to make sure we're on the same page. So,
I mean, woke is sort of the idea that this is going to be one of those moments that goes viral. I mean, woke is something that's very hard to define, and we've spent an entire chapter defining it. It is sort of the understanding that we need to
pause it. Just to be clear, I mean, she spent an entire chapter dedicated to woke, but to actually define it, you can only define wokeness with a chapter.
No, as Bradley was laying out, in the description of this book, I'm reading the first two paragraphs. Woke is mentioned twice. So that's a foundational theme that she's exploring in her texts,
But to be fair,
story.
in that description, is there an asterisk next to it that says, and to find out what woke means, you got to read the book.
Yeah. The totality of chapter 8.
Right, this would be a one way to tease it.
Okay, right there.
Yeah, let's see the whole brain fart.
Of Americans consider themselves very liberal, and probably fewer of them consider themselves to be woke. And so, you know, when we talk about traditional,
what does that mean to you? Would you mind defining woke? Because it's come up a couple times, and I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Okay, before this gets hilarious and embarrassing and all that, we're gonna. I'm sorry, we gotta laugh at it. It's a news blooper. At its core, it's gonna be funny, but it's also maddening. You see that look that she has? That's how I feel. If you're a MAGA person joining us for the first time or watching the VOD later, that's how I feel when this lady says something like, a lot of people don't consider themselves woke. It is a word that originated in the black community, meaning being aware of how things work, and it is almost exclusively used by right-wingers. At the very least, I would hope somebody that goes around using that word as though it is a normal part of political discourse would be able to identify it. But okay, she's about to right here.
So, I mean, woke is sort of the idea that
this goes on long enough that we can really, truly bask in this. But I want to challenge you. If you're a right-winger watching this later on, I want to challenge you with something. And don't feel bad if you wind up just like her, because I suspect you will. Don't Google it. Don't go to a different tab. Don't pull out your phone. Number one, have you accused someone of being woke in the comments or whatever, or scoffed at woke policies? Just answer it in your own head. Number two, what is woke? Would you be able to answer this question? Have you taken a firm stance against something that's woke? But do you know what it is? I'm not saying, do you know what I think it is? I'm not saying, do you know what this person thinks it is? Do you personally have a definition for that thing you hate? Think about it. If you can't answer it right now off the top of your dome, but you did answer yes to that first question, you got to have a serious look at how willing you are to commit to an idea without fully grasping it. It's healthy to be skeptical of yourself first. Or you wind up like this.
This is going to be one of those moments that goes viral. I mean, woke is something that's very hard to define, and we've spent an entire chapter defining it. It is sort of the understanding that we need to totally reimagine and redo society in order to create hierarchies of oppression. Sorry, it's hard to explain in a 15-second soundbite.
Yeah, look at time.
Oh!
Yeah, you had more than 15
Oh! Oh, the kill shot at the end there. No, go ahead. No, we'll wait. Just letting the seconds tick by. Oh, that's devastating. I cannot watch the first season of The Office because awkward comedy, like cringe comedy, literally makes me squirm. Like I squirm and then I have to just leave the room. For that reason, I had to pause the live stream when I was watching this the first time, and because it was too juicy not to watch everything, but I had to go take 5. Nightmare. But here's the thing. I would feel bad for that person, except that she, in my opinion, is causing real harm to children in order to make money. Because she wrote a whole book about how being woke is bad. She said she wrote a whole chapter about what woke is. But she can't give a summary? Because she didn't really have an operating principle going into this thing. She didn't start from, what's causing this problem? Ah, I see. It's this thing here. Let me intimately understand what this thing is. No, she started from, right now, there's a group of people I can sell a book to who hate woke stuff. They're really, really bigoted against trans people. And I can profit off that by being cruel to trans children. Again, this is my perspective. Correct me if I'm incorrect. Go ahead, let me have it in the comments. Preferably no insults. But if you're going to insult anybody, go ahead and let me have it. But genuinely get your point across. If I'm wrong about this lady, tell me. And tell me how.
seconds. Also, you had, I don't know how long the research.
Also, come on, it's Emma Vigeland. She's going to do a better job of tearing into her than just about anyone else on the planet Earth.
Research took for this book, but a long period of time to explore that within the pages of your book that's about how wokeness is hurting the children.
Create hierarchies of oppression. I mean, I guess like, I'm not even sure. I think I know what that means. That there is some oppression that is worse than others. Now, of course, that contends that there are no hierarchies of oppression in society existing now. Prior to this scourge of wokeness that has washed across the nation, the idea that there are no hierarchies of oppression. Although, I mean, I remember in the pre-woke days about the attacks on religious freedom. In fact, that's what got us, I think, a 6-3 Supreme Court in many respects, was this notion of attacks on religious freedom, how religious people are attacked. And conservatives, there's a lot of complaints about conservatives being attacked, and particularly by our culture. I mean,
yeah, the only hierarchy is that conservatives are on the bottom of it, taking everything down their throats.
You remember all those men's rights activists who were complaining about how like it's just all about like all the powers with the women who are being sexually assaulted, and that's not fair. It's really the men who are being shoot. I mean, really, what she's saying is again, they don't like the changes in society when society has become more democratized in terms of like social issues.
Yeah.
In terms of like again, the whole talk about cancel culture and the idea of the new sort of like thought police. There's always been thought police. There has always been cancel culture. In fact, it was so bad that it was pre-cancel culture. You wouldn't even get a hearing. You wouldn't achieve fame. You wouldn't achieve success if you didn't have the correct, narrow worldview.
That's my experience. All of the genuine canceling I've seen that wasn't like a reaction to someone's genuinely abhorrent behavior. It was like moms in the suburbs who had a problem with what kids 4 states over were doing for fun. And it was almost always harmless activities, video games. Oh, they're causing this and that. Absolutely no evidence to back it up. Simply, that's something the kids are enjoying. I'm going to try to stomp it out. D&D. Same thing. This is the satanic panic. Before that, the Comics Code Authority having to get created to prevent comics, like literally pages, comic books, from being just banned. It's, the war on Christmas. Guess what? Christmas shot first. That was a wild overreaction to a few people, a small chunk of the country, politely asking to acknowledge during the holidays, during December, 1/12 of the year, that there were other holidays as well. It was not to exclude anybody, it was to include others. But the inclusion of others was a problem for the people who then claimed they were being excluded through their war on their holiday. But that wasn't what was happening. I agree. And he's doing the more serious version, which is if you used to be a woman, you couldn't have a job or vote, depending on when this was. If you used to be black, you used to be property, depending on when this was. That is actually inequality. That is actually a group being attacked. That's what it looks like. It's the reason the left seems mad all the time, like they're always fired up about something, because motherfuckers keep doing this. And if you fought in a war, for example, and you took a bullet in the chest, and somebody comes by you when you're in physical therapy, recovering, and they slipped and fell in their kitchen and have and got one cracked rib, a hairline fracture on their rib, and they're standing next to you like, ugh, we're both just our bodies are just under assault, right? You're gonna try to be understanding. You're gonna try to be sympathetic to the fact that they are in pain and everybody's living their own story, but you're gonna be pissed because you understand a different level of suffering. That's where a lot of that anger comes from. I'm going to pause this because it's a long clip and I like all of it. Let's have a quick look. JFJ Live says Roger Ailes held top cabinet positions in federal government for 40 plus years. All this while being the CEO of one of the largest media producers in history. Yeah, I am working on what you can do about lying in media. And it's not going to surprise you that it's a difficult question to answer. But what you have just pointed out is a perfect example of why we need like actual laws in the country that say, okay, if you do this job, here's a sneak peek at what it's going to be broadly about. if you do this job, you cannot also do this job. Having done this job prevents you for, let's say, a full decade from doing this job. Because the other place we see this happening a ton is lobbyists. If a lobbyist becomes a politician or vice versa, that's incredibly corrupt. Similarly, if a lobbyist is a regulator, like how we, like with our banking regulators, where they were 1 year working for the bank, the next year supposedly in charge of policing them, and then the very next year working for a different bank. We can't have that. Earlier, by the way, if it's not wildly obvious, your old pal Jake's got a good case of the ADHD. And so these will be read wildly out of order. JFJ Live says, consider the way Nixon and Trump both praised law and order while sending federal agents to specifically crush civil rights protests with force. That is a phenomenon that I am trying so hard to understand, because you're correct. It ends up being, time and time again, projection. You guys remember what they used to call the Civil War in the South? They still do, God help us, in some places. The War of Northern Aggression. But who made all the decisions leading to the bloody conflict? The South. There is a through line throughout American history and, frankly, around the world, where a certain kind of politics always becomes projection politics, where they are constantly charging ahead, doing terrible things, and accusing all of their opponents of doing the very thing they're doing. If anybody has an idea for an expert, by the way, that I should get in contact with. By the way, I today finally got the balls to send a message to Hartman, so thank you for motivating me there. But if anybody has an idea of even what the right field would be to ask about that, let me know. Little newsman's trick, I'm probably just going to write a college of some sort and say, hi, do you have a professor that would be willing to come educate myself and the audience for 40 minutes? But I wouldn't even know what department to look in right now. So the question is, projection politics, it seems to have existed throughout history. Where does it come from? What has been done about it that has been successful? Let's continue with this, because I do enjoy this clip. So they're discussing why it is she can't answer this question and how bizarre it is that she can't answer this question that should be a softball. It's one of those questions that isn't asked not because journalists aren't working hard, but because they assume the answer would be too easy. But no, it appears to be the Rubik's Cube of questions for people that use the word woke.
That exists.
By the way, we're going to take back woke for sure. But for now, people that use the word woke.
When a certain segment of our population was exclusively allowed to maintain power, positions of power.
I have an answer for her. I mean, and she did take nearly 24 hours to come up with her own definition of wokeness and put it on Twitter in one of the most laughable cover your ass attempts ever recorded in history. I mean, we have to say,
let's go to it.
But for people that want to combat when you hear wokeness and right-wingers in your life talking about this, all right, it's fine. I mean, this is insane. It's blackness. That's a very easy way to kind of just copy and paste that into what right-wingers are saying about it. It's anything that does not go with a Christian, heterodox construction of society, one where men are in positions of power and the nuclear family is at the center.
To be fair, fundamentalist religious.
Fundamentalists, okay, yeah, but these are all the things that they say are I lost my train of thought. But
are under assault.
Are under assault, right? Or wokeness is gay people, right? Just you can transfer all of that into their definition of wokeness. It makes it a lot easier for them, for you to understand what they're trying to say when they're anti-woke.
All right, so here is her Twitter thread explaining. This is her big CYA project from today. So everybody's seen my viral brain fart from Rising this morning. I can see why it went viral, of course. For those who haven't, here it is. That is showing the confidence that I'm not afraid of showing everybody what everybody's already seen.
All right, a couple of things. First of all, their OBS game is on point. I'm going to have to try to catch up with them. Second of all, no. Look, if we're going to dissect, all right, now let's do the umbrella first. The umbrella is this person. This person is a con artist who is hurting children for profit. Goose egg sympathy, none. That said, in terms of actually analyzing behavior, yeah, that's the ballsy thing to do. Don't hide the ball. Don't make people go look for your F up. Say, all right, here's my F up right here. Here it is. This is a mistake. I did this. I apologize. Here's my attempt to correct it. Except, of course, you just know that what she says is going to be despicable. Let's find out.
A bit of a...
I did listen to this, but I can't stress enough that I was literally squeamish and running in and out of the room.
A backstory. And, this is the thing that really upsets me about wokeness, too, is that it's all about everybody's got a rationale and a justification and a sort of a snowflake. But I should get I should get credit for participation.
Yeah, my feelings.
Here we go.
My feelings.
All right, here it is. Just before we went on air, Brianna Joy Gray was on a hot mic. Oof. Now, not a hot mic. In other words, like people.
I forgot about this part. After I went out of my way to play devil's advocate on the devil's behalf there. Nope, no insults today. I played devil's advocate there. She turns it around on the host. She wasn't stumbling to talk about the previous thing. They were getting through their intro just fine. They were halfway through the segment. She was answering a different question when Ms. Gray asked her that relatively simple one, and she's going to blame this on something said over a hot mic. All the honor for having showed her mistake and being brave about it. Gonzo. Withdrawn. Can't stand by that. That is a cowardly act. Let's let her shame herself.
We can hear each other on Skype.
Yeah, you got on the Zoom call.
Hot mic. Yeah.
This is a hot Zoom call.
Secretly, this is what they're secretly saying at the Hill. I heard her demeaning parenting in general.
What? Wow, that hits at her core as a parent.
I honestly, as a parent myself, I'm outraged.
Wow, yeah,
and
this is horrible.
I'm going to probably need a second or two to regain my
Quick, Sam, define wokeness. Define Social Security.
And she did it in a general and colorful and nasty terms, stating,
"Oh no,
parents only have kids in order to perpetuate their own narcissism."
That is so colorful and nasty.
Let me do a fact check on that. Very possibly. Very possibly.
Case by case basis, maybe.
Let me turn this around. And again, we're doing a lot of this for the benefit of a hypothetical right-winger that I genuinely am hoping watches this and has the gumption to comment in the spirit of honest debate. But the live audience, those are folks I mostly know. So I'm going to pitch this to you, live audience. We'll go over it. If this situation were reversed, and try to answer honestly here, if Sam Cedar went on to I'll be the fool for this one. If I went on to television and I had done a whole rant about neoliberalism and how bad neoliberalism is for our country. And somebody said, "Okay, Jake, listen, pal, what is neoliberalism?" And I went, And then I came on to social media and I said, listen, I looked foolish, but that host, let's call him Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson was on a hot mic before, and he said, and let me translate this to what I'm sure right-wingers think lefties are talking about all the time. And he was saying mean things about minorities and saying there are some good ones and some bad ones. Actually, that would infuriate me. So, okay, it works. If that was my excuse, is that Tucker Carlson said mean things unrelated mostly to the conversation, would that be acceptable to you? Would you see that and think like, okay, so that makes sense. I understand now why Jake couldn't define what neoliberalism is in a segment about neoliberalism, which he says is bad. Because I'll tell you, if that was Sam Cedar and he did that, I'd be hugely disappointed. Like, call into his show and say, dude, you got to take another whack at explaining yourself. I don't care that Tucker Carlson said something I disagree with. I assume he does every moment that he is not on camera, because he does every moment that he is on camera. That wouldn't make a lick of difference to me, and I'd be disappointed in Sam Cedar for frankly bitching out like that. How would you feel? Would that be an acceptable explanation to you? I think the answer is no. And then my question for the hypothetical right-winger watching. Genuinely. Just the structure of that argument. Forget whether or not you like this minority group or that minority group. Just the structure of that argument. Are you satisfied with that? Do you consider her to be a good representation of your belief system? I hope not. I certainly hope not. Look into the Atwater's Southern strategy. All right, I will. Let me know in the comments. First of all, if you have a clip you'd like us to watch and dissect, including, let's try to attract some MAGA folks. If there's a Tucker Carlson segment or a Sean Hannity, so and so. Oh hell, I'll look for one. But if there's something like that you think your old pal Jake should tear into, let me know. So let's let them finish just tearing to bits what is wrong with this response. And you're going to get a Sam Cedar, Emma Vigeland tag team. You can't go wrong.
Robbie responded, there are some good ones and some bad ones.
Playing both sides of the fence.
Yeah, trying to I don't know what.
In the face of such
okay.
As a mom of 6, look, I don't care how many kids. I'm sorry. I got it one more time. I don't care how many kids you have. Doesn't give you a right to be a dick. But separate from her political belief system, respect for having 6 kids. Good Christ. But I can't stress enough, she's fucking over millions of other kids. She is a bad person.
Nasty rhetoric.
As a mom of 6, including a newborn, this threw me off just a bit.
Just a bit.
She's a mom of 6, so she's 6 times the parent in terms
That's
of...
a lot of narcissism.
Right.
Not an excuse, just a reality. I'm human.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see. All right, thrown off.
Yeah, I mean, I had 6 kids and I didn't consider that once.
Okay, so she was thrown off, and as you know, when you're thrown off, there are specific words that you cannot access.
Right. She was flustered.
Like ones you build an entire book around.
Ones that you build an entire book around.
Yeah. When you hear that kind of like vile discrimination being leveled against you and on a hot mic, it's just hard to recall the thesis of your book.
I'm not just bringing this up because it's hilarious. It is hilarious. But I am bringing this up because I didn't with Matt Walsh last time. But do recall, Matt Walsh had this exact same issue. He was asked, he did a whole movie on what a plague trans kids are. Oh, God. Everybody's forcing their kids to be trans now. And he was asked, how many kids in America transition each year? How many surgeries? And he's like, oh, it'd have to be in the millions. Remember, this guy is claiming to be an expert. What was they because Joe Rogan got in some legal trouble recently, they had to fact check it live. What was the actual answer? I think it was under 10,000. Off by about 999%. This is a habitual problem, and it comes from the people who claim to be experts not actually being experts. And the reason they're not experts is because it is nonsense. It's not real. The woke problem she's talking about isn't a thing. From what I've seen, and do correct me if I'm wrong, what right-wingers think left-wingers believe isn't accurate. And they write whole books about it. They start whole social movements to fight it. But they're just windmilling at shadows. And occasionally one of those fists flies out and hits somebody that had nothing to do with it. And it's literally driving us apart. Let him finish.
That is
made myself sad. Damn.
One that is really the fundamental organizing principle of your public intellectualism.
Yeah.
And but she says, and I'm not sure where the connection is to hearing parenting disparaged and being a parent herself and then not being able to define woke. But she skips that part and goes directly as for wokeness, here's an actual definition.
Well, here we go.
A radical belief system.
All right.
Suggesting that our institutions are built around discrimination and claiming that all disparity is a result of that discrimination. Okay. Well, I mean, I would have to say that, let's be clear.
Yeah.
The first half, I don't think is a radical belief.
That's the thing is like a radical, there are certain people that think like a radical meaning like you need some sort of revolutionary overturn. And I think like a lot of like a CRT is just trying to get like law and stuff.
They're taught in many of these institutions of our system.
To try to make it more like, I guess, modern compared to like the slave master coordination system that we inherited.
Yeah. And I would say that the percentage of people who identify as woke, and I would think that like, or perpetuating a woke ideology, and I think I would consider myself to perpetuate a woke ideology on some level, if this is an ideology as opposed to just sort of like assessment of society. I don't know that anybody claims that all disparity is a result of that discrimination.
Yes.
So we are talking about an infinitesimal, and look, it's possible there are pockets of wokeness that are existing outside of our purview.
Yeah.
But, and you know, we're not exactly woke central per se, but I would think I would be aware of such communities that perceive all discrimination as a function of, or all disparity as a function of that discrimination.
I mean, we talk about economic inequality all the time on this program, so we wouldn't even fall under this definition.
It seeks a radical redefinition of society in which equality of group result is the end point. That's also just absurd.
Silly.
Yeah.
Enforced by an angry mob.
The angry mob that's dragging her on Twitter now for not being able to define it.
The good news for Bethany Mandel is that to the extent that this exists in the real world, it is a very, very, very small phenomena. And I'm surprised this isn't an academic book that is sold in very rarefied circles, because you're talking about something that, like, this is also, you know, I think we got more issues with paranormal happenings than this.
Yeah.
These definitions, like the word all, it really gives the game away there too. You could say like significant ones, but like all very over eggs it. And Ben Shapiro did the exact same thing. Wokeness claims: 1, Western civilization and institutions were and are discriminatory and serve the purposes of those in power, typically white straight
Pause it.
men.
Now pause it. Is this even like slightly like controversial statement?
No, that's well.
Western civilization and its institutions were and are discriminatory and serve the purposes of those in power.
Yeah, well, he's trying to naturalize it. He's trying to naturalize any difference in outcome between race, gender groups, sexuality groups, etc.
Yeah, and I
don't even like what is controversial about that statement.
Well, to them, it is.
To me, it's like that it doesn't include any sort of thing about capitalism or class.
But I mean, these guys think that all of that is true. The only thing that there's a disagreement about is they just think that these people in power belong there because of their abilities.
Yeah, it's good that it's
as opposed to like I don't think that Ben Shapiro would say like that these institutions were. He may not say they are discriminatory, but he certainly say they were. I mean,
right.
Ben Shapiro would not have been allowed to go to Harvard if he was, 60 years older.
Yeah.
Because of his kippah.
Yeah. And then, too, that discrimination is both historic and ongoing, and all group disparities are explained by it.
Explained by it.
Yeah, that's a straw man.
As opposed to like group disparities.
They do this with. I mean, honestly, they do this with Antifa too. Trump was pretty expert at this, right? And he didn't feel like he could explicitly criticize like Black Lives Matter, so they make it about Antifa, and then that continues to cycle through, and it becomes just this amorphous thing.
The thing that bums me out about it is that they do, like, I saw this happening in real time. You know, the blaming of Antifa for this and that, and I thought, well, shoot, they're gonna figure out what Antifa is pretty soon, and then they're gonna go after it. And I have a feeling they're gonna decide it's something I like, but they never did. They never really settled on that. They just said this is an Arabic-sounding phrase for anti-fascist, and then it just,
where the right can attack the left and say Antifa, any kind of protester is Antifa. That sounds scary. And they've done this with wokeness too.
Not an accident, by the way, that it sounded Arabic vaguely. That was still when we were transitioning off of viewing terrorists as brown people, which was a fun thing America did for about 2 decades.
Being woke used to be kind of a term that came out of Black thought, and so now they essentially associate it with anything that's surrounding critical race theory or systemic racism, and then expanded it out to any anti-gay stuff. Like, they can't define it because they've broadened it to such a point that they use it as a way to criticize Black people without having to say it. That's why they get uncomfortable when they have to come up with a definition. And when they do come up with a definition, it's a straw man that's way too broad.
Right.
The only reason I don't have Majority Report on every day is that right there. I got nothing to add to that. Perfectly put, Emma. Probably should have isolated that and played it at the beginning. But nonetheless, no notes for Emma Vigeland there. Although I do want to talk about why you might want to be woke. Right-wingers, I acknowledge. This was all lefty opinion. But if you've got right-wing opinion you'd like us to have a look at, drop a link in the comments in the VOD. Or if you happen to join us for the live stream, welcome. And drop a link in the comments. We are about to watch some Tucker Carlson. This is going to be a first on this channel, and I am blind watching it. But first, I just want to put a cap on this woke talk. So look, we're going to do a whole separate video about it. We're going to not do that. There we go. We're going to talk about why specifically the GOP is obsessed with woke but can't define it. And why, when you find out the actual definition of woke, you might want to be woke yourself. You might want the whole country to be woke. Part of my definition is that being woke simply refers to waking up to the reality you live, to being aware of the unvarnished way things work. If you are woke, then you think critically about the systems you live in, such as government, your job, etc. Any system of organization. You think critically about it. It doesn't necessarily mean you dislike it. You'll find a lot of us do, because we're thinking critically about it. But it doesn't necessarily mean that. Why, you could live in a country that everything's going the way you think it should. But you nonetheless think critically about the reality in which you live. Because the part of being woke that the right wing focuses on is what they just spent 18 minutes talking about. It's the part that asks Americans to have the courage to be frank about their past and present treatment of minorities. That's the part of being woke that I find right-wingers focus in on. Because of this, being woke is associated with wanting to be a good person. And you know what? I do find there's a lot of overlap there. That is a way a lot of people become woke, but you end up learning other things too, like foreign policy. And there are plenty of reasons in your own self-interest, even if you are white as a lily, even if you are a guy in a guy's world, God help us. For example, when you build foreign policy off of silly anti-this and that rhetoric, if you decide, no, we don't like Muslims. No. Oh, don't tell me that Muslims have it hard. There's a war on Christmas. Christians are the ones who are under attack. When you build your foreign policy off attitudes like that, instead of thinking about what will function well, what our goals actually should be, when you're not trying to relive the Crusades 1,000 years later, you have effective foreign policy. But when you do build it off of the silly anti-this and that rhetoric, you lose your place as a leader on the world stage. We just had that happen. We have been famously unable to negotiate any sort of peace in the Middle East. But Iran just came to an agreement with China, our nearest competitor, in an arena we had been unable to because of our favoritism of some countries, including Saudi Arabia. Well, now China seems to be taking the lead. We're going to do a segment on it later. But you should know, being woke essentially comes down to being a realist. That's it. If you can't deal with being a realist, you shouldn't deal with politics. That is my suggestion. All right, let's read some comments, and then we're going to watch Tucker Carlson. Again, if you guys have a clip in particular you'd like me to watch, drop the link or even just say what it is in the comments. I'll try to find it. But I will say I'm going to blind watch this Tucker Carlson, and he looks particularly Tucker Carlson-y. Very smug. I bet he's going to do one of these. Oh! So I'm prepared to be furious. Let's have a quick gander. Oh, wireless mic. Good to see you. I'd say that's true. Every explanation of woke by right-wingers has nothing to do with what being woke really is. Yeah, it's bizarre and maddening. Patrick Kibido says it's just a catch-all for anything they fear or don't understand. Wholeheartedly agree. And by the way, happy St. Kibido's Day to all. Yes, says John McDonough, like everything MAGA, there is no there. Yep. It was a way to prevent voting. Yes, very true, JFJ Live. It defines all the major policy positions of the GOP since Nixon. Yep. If anything, they have not come up with new ideas or tactics since then. Basically, yes, except I would have I'll talk about him a little bit more. There was a fella by the name of Newt Gingrich who is largely responsible for the Republican Party as it appears today. He's up there, for example, with Roger Ailes and Ronald Reagan in terms of the current GOP we're dealing with. You want to know where the neoliberals came from? Essentially just libertarians, but with a fancier name. That's Ronald Reagan. And that bled into both parties badly. Clinton was a big fan of Reagan, and you see where we went with that. I give you NAFTA. But Newt Gingrich, that's where the MAGA comes from. Not the neoliberalism. Not the super friendly to business necessarily. Gingrich was plenty friendly to business. But where this unreasonable fight constantly, find something to fight about if you got nothing, that's Newt Gingrich. Yeah, he's worthy of his own stream. But he was, for the early 90s, what the Tea Party was for the 2000s. He's, in my opinion, directly responsible for the Tea Party. And what MAGA is today. That was Newt Gingrich. You want to know why Bill Clinton got impeached, in addition to Richard Nixon and now Donald Trump, even though what Bill Clinton did was lie about an affair, not pay a bribe about an affair, just lie. He admittedly lied under oath, but still, he was under oath in the first place because Gingrich. And funny enough, Lindsey Graham. Oh, I've put it off long enough. Fellas, ladies, everybody's fellas. We're going to watch Tucker Carlson. Old pal Jake is going to suck it up and try to attract an audience that does not normally watch this channel. Let's have a look at what tonight Tucker Carlson has to say.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson. Tonight has been a tough couple of years for the experts when it comes to big public policy questions, complicated adult stuff like war and disease and the economy, really the only things that matter. The assumption in Washington...
For a second, I thought he was going to talk about the House, but I just realized every accusation is an admission. Never mind.
...and has for many years been that you should not worry about it. Don't sweat the details. That's not your role as a citizen and as a voter.
Every accusation is a confession. It's not what they say on the left. It's what they say in the center, for sure. Granted. That's definitely what they say at Fox News. Case in point, if you recall, on the very first day of the January 6th hearings, Fox had a musical segment singing about not paying attention. They literally did a musical. And the singer was laughing at himself on stage because it was so, I assume, because it was so ridiculous.
We don't have that kind of democracy, the kind where you might actually participate. No, your job is to trust the experts and their conclusions and then obey them. But COVID kind of blew that up. If there's one thing we learned from that disaster, it's that public policy experts very often had no clue what they were talking about.
Oh, Christ.
Your hippie aunt in Mendocino County knew a lot more about how to beat a flu virus than your average virologist on CNN.
What?
Your aunt would tell you to go outside, get some exercise, some sun.
Ooh, we talked about this. Wait a minute. Ooh, wait just a minute before we go on. Oh, that fucking face. Hold up. He's taking shots at CNN. I mean, so there's another thing earlier where CNN has started like calling Michael Cohen admitted liar Michael Cohen, like just throwing bombs for no reason, being classless and making a play for Fox's audience. Fun to see that Fox noticed, and they seem to be punching back. Little shot at CNN there. All right.
Light some fresh air. Stop eating junk food. Turn off your computer once in a while.
Never.
Spend time with other people. Be healthy. That advice worked. The experts, by contrast, made you get the vaccine, and that did not work. So by March of 2021...
Okay, just for the record, the vaccine absolutely works. Get vaccinated. Get your booster. Get the third one. Each time you get it, you get about a 12% raise in how much you can resist. It does have diminishing returns, and after 3 doses, if you are young, I don't know what they define as young, you are probably fine. If you're not, go ahead and get 4, because, and I can't stress this enough, it literally saves lives.
And people are starting to figure this out. Anyone who was paying attention in America
Jesus Christ.
understood that the experts, many of them, were full of it. And it was exactly at that moment that the Atlantic magazine in Washington published a piece pushing back against the growing consensus. That story was entitled, "Following Your Gut Isn't the Right Way to Go." It's hard to think of a funnier headline, really, mostly because it's so spectacularly absurd. You should always trust your gut, obviously. It is the one thing that will never betray you. But the Atlantic magazine wanted you to know that your natural instincts are, in fact, worthless. The experts had a rough year, the magazine conceded, but we still have to trust them. Right. Actually, we don't have to trust them. And on big questions of public policy, we absolutely should not trust them. It's a democracy. But Washington is continuing to demand that we do trust them. Why? There may be a reason. Maybe COVID isn't the only big project they have in mind for us, a project the experts will justify on MSNBC. And indeed, it's not. There is the climate change agenda. And the climate change agenda is the single most ambitious effort to remake human civilization in all recorded history. And it's coming. In fact, it's already in progress. The only reason that millions and millions of Americans aren't protesting...
I'll be real with you. Every time I see one of these, hold up, let me get off the screen for a second. Every time I see one of these, I think it's like a gag, like somebody edited in a lame thumbnail for their YouTube video. But no, they really aired that on television, huh? Right wingers, if you're watching this, is that what you think Greta Thunberg's up to? Like just sneering and being offended that she would ever be questioned for anything at all. Like, it's just such a shitty way to treat a child who is an activist whose stated goal is to save the planet. Even if you don't think that she's, if you for some reason choose to disagree with 99% of scientists who work in the field, you still have to concede that that is a young lady who at least seems to herself believe she's working to save the world. Are you cool with this millionaire TV guy putting up that shitty little dig at her? Raise your standards, man.
Protesting in the streets tonight over this effort to completely overturn their lives is that on some level, many people still do trust the experts, at least on climate change. But should they?
Yes.
We were pondering that
Literally,
this
they
morning
should.
when we saw that the world's most famous climate change expert, Greta Thunberg of Sweden, just deleted a tweet she wrote in June of 2018. Here it is.
Great,
quote,
let's see it.
A top climate scientist is warning that climate change will wipe out all of humanity unless we stop using fossil fuels over the next 5 years.
Before he unleashes whatever that shitty buildup is that I see over there, do you think, and let me know in the comments, do you think that he is going to disagree with whether or not it will wipe out all of humanity? Whether or not the time frame is correct, as in we're already doomed? Clearly, I think that's not the case. Or is he just going to take another needlessly mean dig at Greta Thunberg? I have a secret fourth answer. I think it's going to be all three. And I think he is going to go against what 99% of scientists say is reality.
The scientist, of course, was a Harvard professor, so obviously that prediction was going to be correct. But here we are, still driving our Silverados and still alive, and some of us are still happy. So it does make you wonder if Greta Thunberg...
Did she say that humanity would die in 5 years? Warning that climate change will wipe out all of humanity unless we stop using fossil fuels over the next 5 years. Yeah. I believe she was referring rather in an inflammatory way, I will admit, to the point of no return. Which, no, that we're not at the point where we can't sustain life on this planet anymore, clearly. And we are not going to be unable to pull ourselves back from the worst of what is coming for us right now. But I'll tell you this, we did pass the point where we can get back to where we were ever. That did happen. The main point I want to point out, though, is that, hold on, Greta Thunberg age, 20 years. She was, and try to understand this for a second, Tucker Carlson. She was 15 when she wrote that. I suspect she read that article about the point of no return, misinterpreted it, and put that up at the age of 15. And now, at the age of 20, she's decided that's not accurate information. I'll delete it. Tucker, when you discover that you've said something that's not accurate, the responsible thing to do is to retract the information. Dominion's calling.
Of course, was a Harvard professor, so obviously that prediction was going to be correct. But here we are, still driving our Silverados and still alive, and some of us are still happy. So it does make you wonder if Greta Thunberg, the greatly revered Greta Thunberg, a perennial finalist for the Nobel Peace Prize,
100%.
could have gotten that so wrong.
At the
what
age of
else
15.
have the climate experts gotten wrong? And how long have they?
Okay, so right-wingers. First of all, if you made it into me slapping Tucker Carlson around, congratulations, honestly. I've been going at it for a full 5 minutes, and you took it right on the chin. Good on you. Here's my genuine question to you. Tucker Carlson just lumped in a 15-year-old girl's misreading of a rather advanced scientific article as being one of the experts. Do you honestly think, right-wingers, do you honestly think that left-wingers think of Greta Thunberg as an expert scientist? Do you think that we thought of her then, in 2018, when she was a 15-year-old girl, as an expert? She's an activist. There's a difference. An activist is like a lobbyist, But instead of for a major corporation, which pays them to kill their soul, they lobby for decent things, just decency in general. That's what Greta Thunberg is. She is not the scientist. That's a different job. I imagine it involves beakers. I don't know. But certainly a college degree, which a 15-year-old generally doesn't possess. The key difference. And right-wingers, my question to you is, did you question that when you first heard Tucker Carlson say, if she's wrong, what other experts were wrong? As though she was an expert? Just see how they kind of sneaks in? It's a dishonest way to address the disagreement. It's not the disagreement itself that I'm even attacking here. It's his methodology. You got to ask yourself, why is he being dishonest in his methodology? Could it possibly be because he can't afford to be honest about it? Just asking questions, as they say.
They've been getting it wrong. Well, fortunately, the Competitive Enterprise Institute has done the research on this, and it turns out these people...
I haven't looked it up. I'm going to duck out for a second and look it up. I 100% promise you that the Competitive Enterprise Institute is a right-wing think tank. As in, just lobbyists. That's it.
People have been very wrong.
So in other words, this group of people that I'm positive Jake is about to find out got paid by big oil. Again, I have never heard of Competitive Enterprise Institute before this. I'm just going to assume right now, but I'm going to fact check. Paid by a big oil. 100%. That's what I'm predicting.
For a very long time. 1969, the New York Times was printing climate hysteria. From an expert
Not
called
hysteria,
Paul
they were
Ehrlich.
right.
Quote, "We must realize that unless we are extremely lucky, everybody will disappear in a cloud of blue steam in 20 years. That was Paul Ehrlich in 1969. Well, here it is, 2023, and that same Paul Ehrlich, who's now 90 and still publishing books and still being cited on 60 Minutes, is still telling us that we're all going to die. Now, clearly, Paul Ehrlich had some sort of traumatic childhood he's been inflicting on the...
Son of a gun. Just popped in to say that I did indeed call that dumbass laugh. Also, Tucker Carlson should be praising that man. Because in 2019, I saw a home literally fall into a lake. That stays with you, man. It's real. And Florida, as we discussed in a previous video, is going to get hammered with it. Actually, some of the worst states for climate change in the next 10 years. And if you need to be a selfish bastard to justify anything, all right, fine. The real estate market will suffer in these states. But the worst states for climate change are going to be bright red, by and large. The
rest of us for over 50 years. And for over 50 years, his fellow experts have taken him seriously. Now, back then, of course, climate change didn't mean global warming. It meant a new ice age. In 1970, the Boston Globe reported, quote, "Scientists predict a new ice age by 21st century. According to the Globe, air pollution may obliterate the sun and cause a new ice age in the first third of the next century." An ice age. In 1972, Brown University's science department sent a letter to the White House explaining that they had deep concern with the future of the world because this ice age falls within the rank of processes which produced the last ice age. 2 years later, in 1974, The Guardian reported that, quote, "spy satellites show new ice age is coming fast." And the report cited, just for moral weight, analysis carried out at Columbia University. Then, a few years later, 1977, the actor Leonard Nimoy was not a science expert technically, but played one at one point on television.
I just want to say I'm impressed that he has correctly identified that Leonard Nimoy is not a science expert. And yet, it's kind of spoiled by the fact that the person up on screen behind me right now was 15 when he lumped her in as an expert. Kind of an issue there. Also, the other thing, I'm not even going to bother with the fact check to find out if everything he just presented is true as he presented it. Let's just assume that it is, for the sake of argument. All those people said those things in the context he is implying. Fine. Let's say that's true. And we had satellite images over time marking that an ice age was coming to the planet Earth, right? And then didn't happen. And in fact, I don't know about you, but I've been getting kind of warm winters. Snow starts later, ends earlier. You know, warmer winters. It's not like there's no snow, but it's less. And in fact, if you go and look up world record temperatures, yeah, they're going up. So here's my question to you. Assuming everything that Tucker Carlson just said is true, would that not tell you we need to slam on the brakes on carbon emissions? Because we are outputting so much heat that we turned back an ice age and now it's going in the other direction. Forget what way the Earth was naturally supposed to go. We should have it sort of balance out to where it is now, right? Maybe a little bit cooler, right? Just a little bit. Doesn't matter if it was natural or unnatural how we got here. Fact is, it is measurably getting warmer every year. And that is effing with the environment. And even if you're greedy, the environment is another way of saying where we exist. The ground you dig into to build your home is the environment. The water you drink, brush your teeth with, and bathe your babies with, well, that's the environment. So it's kind of a big deal if we're effing with it. If we're effing with it so hard that we turned back an ice age. Great. Glad we turned back that ice age. I don't want to be a mammoth. But now it's time to stop, folks. Incidentally, I'm now unpinning that. I don't take anything he says as true until I have absolutely verified it. By the way, I did just look it up. Yeah, it's a right-wing libertarian institute. I have yet to find... I just looked at the first sentence in Wikipedia. Right-wing libertarian institute. Okay. I'm going to read now a couple paragraphs down, and I suspect Big Oil pays him.
Shut this video.
We are unprepared for the next advance. The result could be hunger and death on a scale unprecedented in all of history.
True.
What scientists are telling us now is that the threat of an ice age is not as remote as they once thought. During the lifetime of our grandchildren, Arctic cold and perpetual snow could turn most of the inhabitable portions of our planet into a polar desert.
Oh my gosh. So something Tucker is about to really wild that he puts... Something Tucker Carlson's about to really demonstrate is that he doesn't understand how science works. And that, the miracle thing about science, the beautiful thing about it, is that over time, you can change your mind because you get something called new data. Now, I'm going to be a little bit of a bitch right now. I know. Wait, is it Salty Saturday? It's Salty Saturday, technically. All right, I'm going to be kind of a bitch. You see, when he thinks of new data, when that knucklehead right there thinks of new data, he thinks of the latest rumor my intern came up with for me to say. But in reality, what new data is measurements, is actionable information. And when you acquire it, you learn. And when you learn, you often change your opinion because you have now more knowledge than you did before. And it's funny to me that to criticize a 15-year-old girl in 2018, he's reaching back to 1969 or 71, I forget when he said that was, to a young, mildly hot Leonard Nimoy being vaguely wrong about the direction the crash would happen with our environment, but not wrong about the fact that the crash would indeed happen. And by the way, we are currently experiencing what we will one day look back upon as the good old days of a climate crisis. And I thought we had longer until it was literally my job to report about it. And I had my my one dry clean only pair of pants for my suit rolled up to my knees as I stacked sandbags in a town that was, Tucker Carlson, you big dopey jackass, literally underwater. Spring Lake, Michigan, 2019. Look it up. Hell of a thing, man.
Hunger and death on an unprecedented scale.
Yes.
Someone else with the tragic childhood he inflicted on the rest of us. But by
my understanding was he had doesn't matter.
The early 1980s, when
Great
the ice
childhood,
didn't arrive, well, the experts decided the problem wasn't too much cold, it was too much heat. It was global warming.
I don't know who he means by experts, but let's give him the benefit of the doubt and assume that is people whose job it is to measure these things.
In 1989, the Associated Press ran this story, quote, a senior UN environmental official says entire nations could be wiped off the face of the earth by rising sea levels if global warming trend is not reversed by the year 2000. In other words, 23 years ago. That same year, 1989, a climate expert called Jim Hansen met with a reporter from Ceylon. According to Ceylon, Hansen explained that within 20 or 30 years, quote, the West Side Highway, which runs along the Hudson River in Manhattan, will be underwater. Underwater. We checked tonight, and actually it's congested, but still a road. Then in March of 2000, the Independent newspaper ran a piece explaining that snowfalls are now just a thing of the past. And we're quoting, snow is starting to disappear from our lives. The piece quoted a climate expert claiming that, quote, children just aren't going to know what snow is. No idea what snow is.
Okay, don't just make me happy here. In fact, I want to take advantage of the fact that there's more than one person present now for these things. In my experience, this is admittedly anecdotal. Let's make it a little bit less anecdotal. In my experience, winter has genuinely been getting shorter. Has that been your experience as well? If not, I would genuinely love to hear that because it would make me feel a little bit better. I also wanted to pause to say, the Competitive Enterprise Institute is funded by donations from individuals, foundations, and corporations. Donors to CEI include a number of companies in the energy, technology, automotive, and alcohol and tobacco industries. Somebody better pick up that phone, because I called it. Yeah. Let's wrap up, Tucker.
A relic, not of the Ice Age, but of the great inferno of global warming. Then, in 2004, amazingly, civilization still existed. The Guardian predicted that, quote, major European cities will be sunk beneath rising seas as Britain is plunged into a Siberian climate by 2020. Which is a little confusing because global warming doesn't typically produce a Siberian climate. And it was around this time that they decided, hey, we don't want to get pinned down on the details. Will it be too hot? Will it be too cold? We don't want to say. Something bad's going to happen, so we're going to call it climate change. And that paved the way for Al Gore, who in 2006 released his famous documentary, An Inconvenient Truth. And the beauty of an inconvenient truth is now that it's been, well, inconvenient.
The reason it was changed to climate change instead of global warming was because of right-wing lobbying efforts. It was a compromise reached because right-wingers were getting just killed in the press, being the people who were against fighting global warming. It was a choice the right wing made, for the record.
More than 15 years since it came out, we can fact check its claims. Here's the trailer.
Speaking of, I'm delighted that we're doing that. Here's a article. Is Venice flooding getting worse? Cities and climate change, by rmg.co.uk. Never mind. Let's go to bbc.com. There we go. Venice is at risk of succumbing to its sinking foundations and rising sea levels, says this article from September of last year. To avert disaster, the city is making changes. That is, for the record, a European city succumbing to climate change, literally getting swallowed up by the sea. Listen, little frog, the water is still going to boil, even if you're just turning the flame up slowly. Let's see him attempt to fact check. I just did it with Google in like no time at all. And there's, by the way, no way we're getting through this whole clip. I just want to hear him fact check.
If you look at the 10 hottest years ever measured, they've all occurred in the last 14 years. And the hottest of all was 2005.
For the record, starting off with facts. I would love to see if he actually, well, maybe he will disagree with this, the specific facts. I'm going to nitpick, though, because this guy in this segment has showed he's a slippery son of a gun.
This is Patagonia 75 years ago and the same glacier today. This is Mount Kilimanjaro 30 years ago and last year. Within the decade, there will be no more snows of Kilimanjaro.
Is that the only thing he's going to jump on?
Ooh. Al Gore also said there would be no ice in the Arctic. He quoted researchers, climate researchers, experts.
Was he denying the 10 hottest years? You know, the thing with numbers?
And he explained that, quote, the North Pole will be ice-free in the summer by 2013 because of man-made global warming. Now, it does take a certain level of chutzpah to make a prediction that precise, and Al Gore made many of them, and all of them turned out to be wrong. And for a normal person, that would be a cue, maybe it's time to retire. I'm rich on Google stock, maybe I could just stop talking because, of course, I've been disgraced by my own foolish predictions. But no, he kept going, and he was helped in that by the entire news media. It makes you wonder why.
I'll help him, too. So Tucker just said he was lying about that. I would say it would be more accurate to say that he was wrong by a couple of degrees, if wrong at all. Arctic annual air temperatures from October 2021 to September 2022 were the sixth warmest dating back to 1900, continuing a decades-long trend in which Arctic air temperatures have warmed faster than the global average. Let me just go ahead and just play that right back for you. Al Gore, in, I think, what was that, 2006? 2005, 2006? Okay. Al Gore predicted that the Arctic, let's go with Tucker Carlson's version, the Arctic ice was going to melt. He accurately warned us of a danger to the Arctic, because annual Arctic air temperatures from October 2021 to September 2022 were the sixth warmest dating back to 1900, continuing a decades-long trend, as in the decades since he said that, a decades-long trend in which, indeed, Arctic air temperatures have warmed faster than the global average. And right-wingers, if you want to know why I don't listen to Tucker Carlson, it is because when I do this with Mehdi Hassan on MSNBC, or Lawrence O'Donnell on MSNBC, or even a lot of the knuckleheads at CNN, when I do this with them, ABC, a local news station, I don't have to stop every 5 seconds to fact check something and find out that, yeah, it's a lie, or a misrepresentation of the truth, or an exaggeration, or a sneaky little tactic. The only way to watch this person is as an adversary. Because if you trust him for a second, your concept of the world will simply be wrong. You will think that the Arctic is fine, even though it's not. And in fact, the ice is melting. It hasn't completely melted, but if there's a snow cone left in the whole of it, Tucker Carlson will say global warming is a hoax. Even though that movie, which won awards, was largely correct, even though the people who disagree with the Democrats up there are funded by big oil, even though Leonard Nimoy was largely correct, even though there literally are European cities falling into the ocean, just happening slowly. It's not a Michael Bay movie. Even though this person is not an expert. Not now. Certainly not in the sense that we consider a scientist to be, which is who the experts are when we say the experts say. And she certainly wasn't in 2015 or 2018 when she was a 15-year-old. I mean, do you understand why this is not good news for you? You would think you would have such a wrong picture of how the earth operates, of who these people are, of what was going on. But you'd leave here thinking you have a good idea of what the people involved are up to. That's dangerous. That's dangerous. And that, by the way, is why I tend to find when you guys are asked or quizzed on your knowledge of politics, and this is, by the way, 100% true, look it up, don't even trust me, be critical of me, Google it. Fox News viewers show less understanding, less knowledge of world events than people who literally watch no news at all. This, at least from what I've seen so far, and let me know if you disagree and why, more importantly, in the comments. But this is misinformation. It's not just a lack of information. You are being incorrectly informed. You're being misinformed, in other words. And it's intentional. Because he had to walk a line there. He had to pick his words there. He had to choose not to tell you how old Greta Thunberg is. The problem, man. If you don't think that's a good representation of what you believe and how you get your information, the challenge remains open. Drop a link in the comments for the VOD of this. And next Friday Peace Talks, I'll put it in the queue. We'll watch something that you agree is a good representation of your view, because it can't be this. Just can't be. I have more respect for you than to believe that this is a representative of what you believe. All right, let's read some of these comments on this, the very happiest of St. Kibideau's Day. What? Patrick Kibideau gifted 5 What You Can Do memberships. That puts us over the line. We are going to have more emojis, which means I am going to have to officially get off my big fat duff and do another Pixel Progressives. It's time. It's just time. I am not nearly as artistic as I was hoping I would be by this point, but I'm gonna knock it out because we gotta fill out those gifts. They're too much fun not to use. This guy gets paid for this, says John McDonough, and people listen. I have to admit, I've never seen more than 5 minutes of Fox News. You know, I'm gonna pick segments that are a little more condensed, I think. But because you can't just let them get away with lying, which means I have to stop it a lot more. But I think we're going to include more of that nonsense in here because it's got to be addressed. Wireless Mike says shorter but more extreme. When the cold does hit, it hits harder than in recent history. Yes, and Laura says the same thing. Yeah, 100%. If I will be wearing this exact same sweater and shirt combination for the foreseeable future because it is the warmest combination that I have. Because when we get a cold snap in here, it's real cold, followed by rain instead of snow. Bizarre. New England winters have been insanely mild. Oh, that's depressing. Thank you again, Patrick Thibodeau, for that those 5 gifted memberships. That's awesome. We have a deep freeze here in Tennessee this year that killed evergreen trees. Wild. Laura, there was a year I got all the snowsuits ready, all the inside games for snowy cold months. I never used them. Never needed them again. Ooh, that's super depressing. The New England coastal ocean temps have risen so much that the codfish have migrated away from our coast. God damn. The codfish industry is disappearing. The increasingly, good Lord, Aunt Button, by the way. The increasingly massive sargassum blooms will devastate coral reefs. Well, 2 things, Aunt Button. Number 1, that's the codfish industry is a story worth covering. I will try desperately to find a way to do that. Number 2, you are the second person in the history of my existence that I have seen use the word sargassum. I am massively impressed. The other was whoever writes the Venture Brothers. Jesus Didn't Charge says, weren't these older predictions dependent on the assumption that no effort would be made to prevent them? In part, yes, because it was new science at the time. But it was also that we didn't used to measure it correctly. We didn't understand, number 1, how I think actually when that was happening, we didn't even know really about the ozone as far as a hole in it goes. And when we did learn about it, we didn't know how the ozone functioned really. Basically, it was new science, and just like with COVID, for example, we were learning as we went. So there was predictions, but they were not that accurate. But broadly, they were right. The broad strokes were correct. And you will notice that the farther that timeline went on, the more Tucker had to shift his words to say it wasn't quite this, because they got more and more accurate. Wireless Mike says there are islands off the coast of New Orleans where there is a house that I visited once that are literally sinking. Oh shit! I shouldn't have made a joke. Due to actively rising sea levels, the residents have to be moved off the islands they've lived in for generations. Shit, that's genuinely depressing, man. Yeah, facts. Nat Thompson, good to see you, sir. Facts do indeed matter. John McDonough says, wow, I see your point, Jake. A well-presented argument of why this platform is a dangerous element of society. Thank you. This was worth it. I learned something, how to invalidate the platform with logic, to explain why Fox is a bad thing, and how to explain why to someone who may not comprehend why. Yeah, the main piece of advice I would give for successful rhetoric is don't assume the same sympathies. So if you care about other human beings simply because you understand that they have thoughts and feelings, that's too mean of me. Just don't assume that they give a about the environment. You don't have to make any. Just address whatever the most callous point could be. Because it will be left to the person and their own conscience to fill in the blank with the rest. There's a lot of strength in the argument you don't even bother making. And I think that's how people on the left actually tend to get tripped up, because we reverse that order of operations, and we go with the most important thing first. I would actually say, don't engage with that most important thing first. Go with the simplest thing first, the actual structure of the argument, for example. Because if they can't get past that gate, what is the point of even talking about the rest? Wireless Mike says, but we made changes and the ozone holes has been repairing itself. Yes, that is one piece of good news. That absolutely, Christ, I'm going to get a new monitor. That has absolutely been a wonderful piece of news. The YouTube channel Climate Town has a fascinating video on when and how scientific knowledge of the impact of fossil fuels of climate. I misread that, but I'm copying that. And you are making the other half of my day, which is researching what to do the next day, much easier. I'll go have a look at that. Socratic method. Yes, absolutely. Brendan Carter. It's really just fighting on whichever level you think will appeal to them. That's all it is. I overcomplicated it. Just whichever method, A, you feel comfortable in, but also B, what they care about. And just don't assume they care about the same things. Listen to what they say, or why they are doing whatever, and then address it on that. They knew a lot earlier than most people realize. Yeah, it's super depressing. Boy. Well, happy St. Kibido's Day. I'm going to go chop this up. I'm going to go see if any of this can be edited into an individual piece. This channel and this chat, says Wireless Mike, makes me feel a little bit better. Makes me feel a little better about the future direction of things. I like the community that's growing here. There are good people here, and I'm glad to be here to see it. Hell yes, you're a founding member, my friend. This channel started months ago. It's an 11-year-old YouTube account, but really only started putting out this kind of content a couple of months ago. You are a founding member, and I wholeheartedly agree. Anyway, after I do all that other editing, I'm going to go get high as a Georgia pine. So, happy St. Patty's Day. Happy St. Kibido's Day. Slante to you too. Catherine Wolf, thank you for joining us. And I will see y'all on Salty Saturday. It's never going to be smooth. That's just the reality we live in.